Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Falcon Farming. This episode is an update video for the 2025 Central Coast Edible Garden Trail. This year it is on permaculture, which is what I study here. This is going to be a fairly comprehensive video, and it's probably going to be pretty long, so I don't know exactly sure how long because I'm just starting to film, but I'm just going to talk until I've covered everything on my site. So instead of doing tours on a day, I'll give these virtual tours so anyone that comes can watch it first. And if they have any more questions, they can ask them on the day. My chickens are trying to escape to the front yard. So that'll sort of cut down the amount of tours I have to do on a day. And then if you have any additional questions or anything like that relating to the video, you can ask that on a day and I will more than happily answer them. So I'll start in the front yard. Stay there. So I bought this property in 2017 in December, and when I bought the property I had no experience in permaculture other than being interested in it. I hadn't studied it specifically. In 2020 I studied Jeff Lawton's online permaculture course. And from that, I learnt that everything I did here was pretty much exactly how I should have done it. So it's good, but I have a design background, sort of an engineering background, so I have an understanding of design. So it sort of helped with seeing the planning that needed to be done on the site. When I was looking to buy a property, this is my garden, I wasn't looking for anything flash. The house is a deceased estate. The lady that was living here kept it the same from the 80s, which I'm more than happy about. Don't care about the kitchen or whatever, because the garden is where I like to put all my effort into. All the houses I was looking for, they were all done up, all the bathrooms were done up and stuff like that, and that's not really my thing. It's just basic lawn. And there was a lot of places that I was looking for that had like services like sewer and stormwater and stuff running through the backyard, and also services in the front yard underground, like gas and like electricity and stuff. So this house in particular is perfect for that, because the gas and water lines stop at my far end of my property, and then because I'm in a cul-de-sac, they go across the road, loop around the cul-de-sac and finish at my neighbor's house. So at the front of my house there is literally nothing, so I can plant as many trees as I want as close to the road as I want, and it's not going to impede on any underground services. So as you can see, I've got a nice gum tree in my backyard. That's the neighbor's one. I keep mine nice and trimmed. The top of it is new growth, so an arborist told me to keep trimming it there because any new growth is going to be dangerous. This is a northern facing house, probably off by about 5 degrees, so I've got 12 meters of frontage and then like 12 meters of western facing roof as well. So I've got 14 solar panels on the front and 6 on the side. So I've got a 6 kilowatt system with a 5.5 kilowatt, I think, inverter, or a 5 kilowatt inverter. So I basically run everything off my solar. When I first got the house, it had a gas oven and cooktop, and I swapped that out for electric, because if I do my cooking throughout the day, it means that I'm using electricity off the sun and not gas, burning gas. So that was the first thing I did, is put solar on and then swap the appliances out for electric. And in the peak of summer, well, not even a peak of summer, in the peak of sun, so whether it's summer or winter, I can run the air conditioning full blast and run 2 hot plates full, like 2 of the hot plates for cooking, and still export 1.5 kilowatts of electricity. So pretty efficient there. So yeah, the northern facing aspect of the house was one of the major aspects of buying this place. Also, the front lawn has a slight slope on it facing towards the north, and then the backyard has that tree in it, which is shading for all my vegetable gardens, which you'll see in a bit out the back. So any plant has a saturation point for their photosynthesis, so they can only withstand up to so many hours of sun a day before they reach their saturation point, and from then on it's not beneficial. It can be detrimental, especially in summer. We've got little seedlings of like vegetables and stuff. It can give them sun damage and burn them. So that tree actually provides quite a bit of shade throughout the day, only up until the base of my solar panels. So I've designed the solar panels far enough up the roof and the tree just short enough in height that even in winter I still get a bit of sun, and it shades my vegetable gardens throughout the day for about 2 hours of a day. It provides shade, which is good because then it helps vegetables not burn in the summer heat. So that's kind of it. I was also looking at the layout of the slope and looking at the free water access and structure in permaculture. So water, and then the access of structures already here. I put a water tank on every single corner as soon as I moved in. I'll run through that later, but for now I'll stick with the front yard. This you can't really see because it's got sweet potato cover crop everywhere. It's weedy, so it won't be like this when you come on the day. I'll be neatening it up. I have been busy doing other things. Semi-professional cyclist in my free time, so I've been busy chasing world records doing that. I've got footpaths down each which act as a swale. When I first moved in and planted all these fruit trees, it wasn't like that. That was an afterthought. I sort of created these swales and joined each of the fruit trees up. I have planted them on somewhat of a contour. That was designed. That was intentional. Just not the swales bit was intentional to start. Originally, there was just your typical, garden, like next door, or the guy across the road actually has a really nice one. Shame it's not productive. So there was a few of those trees, and I just basically ripped them out and started again. I've done a lot of soil work when I planted each of these trees. I dug about 1 meter wide and 1/2 meter deep hole, and it was very heavy clay soil, so I churned a lot of compost and gypsum in with it. So the trees had the best opportunity to grow, and I made sure that the edges of those holes weren't too smooth and too plain. Those edges of the holes I left chipped away a little bit so the roots could still penetrate in. And once I'd done that, I just got leaf mulch. Actually, this tree over here, not too long ago, I saw some arborists trimming out and they had a whole truckload of mulch, and I was like, hey, can you dump it at my house? So it went from there to here. So you can't get any more environmentally friendly in terms of CO2 and transportation costs than that. So, but yeah, I put leaf mulch down and let that break down over a couple of years. I tried mushrooms and it didn't work. It was I didn't have much success with mushrooms, but there was still the inoculated bales of hay. So I just started burying them in the soil, and then within 3 to 4 months I saw mushrooms in my soil, so spread throughout. So that's pretty cool. So that's helped a lot with enriching the soil with nutrients and stuff. As you can see, I've got a lot of suckers here. There's a lot of suckers there. There's some there. So this is from that apricot tree here. I'll run through exactly what trees I have as well. But as you can see, there's a sucker here and the apricot tree there. And all the trees are literally interconnected. I've found suckers from like my pear tree. There was one from my my fig tree over here, all the way at the other end of the garden. I was digging and I found a root and I pulled it up and it came all the way back to here, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's like, it's crazy how far it has gone. So I've done a lot of soil prep. That was the main thing that I wanted to do, and right now I've got a lot of cover crop, which I intend to do a lot more of. On the swale, the idea out the front is that I'm going to have a lot of perennials. I've already got rhubarb, some comfrey, stuff like that I can chop and drop, or add to the compost or feed to the chickens or whatever. When I first put the leaf mulch down and I did the inoculation with fungi, I also did cover crops, so vetch and wheat and all sorts. I got it from, I forget what it was. It was a summer cover crop mix from an Australian supplier in like a 4 kilo bag, and I just went crazy and threw the seeds everywhere. But it looked like an absolute mess after like a year, because it was just a mess of like clover and buckwheat and whatnot. It was crazy, but it was great because I chopped and dropped and then turned that back in, and then it grew back, and then I kept turning it back in. And I've still got some clover here from the original seed, so it's just self-seeding over the years, just keeps coming back. So that's been a lot of work with the soil preparation for that. Now let's go through the trees that I have and why I planted them. So I've got my car here, and then the grassy verge. This is actually beyond the boundary limits of my property. My property finishes about another half meter in there, but I figured as long as it doesn't look too outrageous, people won't care. And yeah, I'm sure no one will ever complain about having this. I think it's like 1.8 meters from the roadside. But here I have 2 apple trees. I have Pink Lady Royal Gala. I've got, so these were designed for the northern facing aspect to shade the grass. I was hoping to get them really tall and shade my car as well, so provide a bit of shade so the sun damage doesn't ruin the paintwork. Imperial Mandarin, Washington Navel. So they're not that big, but I figured that would fill up the space around the letterbox, because they're only going to grow to about 2 meters tall, and it'll keep the letterbox nice and neat. So I've got the 2 apple trees here. I've got Feijoa. I've got a mulberry, which is in the back here. And over this side, I've got some guava, some cherry guavas. So I've got red cherry, 2 red cherries and 2 yellow cherry guava, and they produce, the first tree, which is the one at the back, was about this tall, and it produced 4.5 kilos of fruit in 1 year, the very first year that I had it. Absolutely ridiculous. And with the amount that I've got here now, I get 1 year. Well, I actually get 48 weeks worth of jam sandwiches, and I have a jam sandwich every day. So that's a lot of jam, like tens and tens of kilos of fruit off it. Before I go too far with the fruits, I'll talk a little bit more about the access. So we've got the water meter here, and down the side of the house to the meter board, I made a nice little path for the meter reader to go in and the gas reader to walk in. It's a little bit overgrown down there, so I need to sort that out. But that's kind of the boundary. Apparently these trees are on my property, according to my neighbour. I don't really care if they chop them down, but I'd like to keep them there. Any high winds normally come from here, so without giving my exact location away, it comes from over West Gosford Way, because I'm at Narara, and it comes over the corner of a hill and then down through here, and I've got these trees here, and it sort of runs basically through a corridor through here. And that's the first thing I learnt living here. Within the first year, they recommend to stay at your property or to stay at a site for at least a year to understand where the rain comes from and which direction the winds are and the sun angles and all that type of thing, which direction the birds come and what the birds like to do. So that's the first thing that I noticed, was the direction of the rain. So severe winds come from that direction, which is why I've planted bushy plants in the front yard, so that sort of funnels the wind and everything over my house. But storms also come from the west, so like rainstorms and stuff, like big intense storms on the Central Coast come from the west, and that's why these trees are also protective of my fruit trees on here. So I've left them get bushy, and it also blocks the light out from shining through bedroom windows. So yeah, I've left them, and I've put bushy plants at the front here. My plums are actually really overgrown, so I've got to trim them quite a bit. So this grape here is I can't remember. Oh, it's written on. I've left it on there. It is a currant. Yes. Yeah, that's right. I remember now. So these ones are for drying. So this is hopefully going to be like a fence of grapes, and these currants and the ones down the side here as well. This little fence here separating the gardens and creating a nice little path. Another thing in permaculture is yields, if you have heard of that. It's basically what you get out of the property, what you get out of things that are here. So a yield can be physical, like food. It can also be emotional, like being proud of what I've created. It can be spiritual, but just little things like this, creating a path with just like a nice little tunnel effect. So it's a bit overgrown because I'm bashing my head on this, but my idea is to create like a little tunnel effect to give an invitation for any meter readers to come down and read a meter. So safe pathway, little tunnel, and then I've also got grapes to admire as well along the way. So this one is also going to be one for drying. I'm yet to get anything off it because it's only like a year and a bit old. So hopefully, if it's just as prolific as my grapevines out the back, it should go absolutely wild the next year and produce heaps of food. So we'll continue on with naming some fruit trees. So I've tried to create a multi-layer system. I've got pineapples, even though they're in the shade, I've got pineapples there. This is sorrel, the original from the cover crop that I planted. It just keeps reseeding itself and just coming back up. I just let it go, and some neighbours down the road takes it for her guinea pigs and rabbits. So, you know, that's another aspect of permaculture and yields, is creating friendships and like-minded people, creating a community. So a yield of sharing and creating good times, happy times, you know, just creating the best out of life, pretty much. So I've talked through all the fruit trees in the first swale. Second one is peach over here. Tropical Sun or something, I can't remember. I get all my fruit trees from Daly's Fruits. They are amazing. I can't rate them good enough. They are so good. Delivered straight to your door for like dirt cheap prices, and they prune their trees really well. So when you first get it, it's pruned really well. It's got a good shape to it, so when you plant it in the ground, it continues that shape, and you don't have to do too much work in shaping it into the open vase, or my apple trees are single leader style. If you don't know much about that, it's a good thing to learn. So there's a few different ways you can prune your trees, based on the style and how you like, based on the type of fruit tree it is and what you want it to look like. I have an apricot, and I got enough apricots out of here for 2 homemade apricot pies, which were absolutely delicious. Another thing in the yields, I've got enough physical food that I can create pies and take it to friends and share it with friends. The recent pie I made, I took on a camping trip, and me and my friend had it for dinner. So, like, how good is that? Like, taking homemade food on a camping trip and sharing it with your friends. Next to me, I can't remember, I've got a Mariposa plum, but I can't remember which one it is, and I can't remember what the other plum is, so I'm sorry about that. But I've got 2 plum trees here, which last year I got like nearly 20 kilos of tree off. Had to give it away, like bucket loads of it I gave away. And I've got some blueberries, trying to plant blueberries in between them as well. There's a blueberry here, as well as what I'm going to do like with the perennial vegetables, like there's silver beet and rhubarb and stuff like that. I'm also going to put some berries and stuff, as well as in the summertime I do a summertime cover crop of potatoes. Sorry, not potatoes. Well, I've got sweet potato, butternut pumpkin, and watermelon. So over here I've got a jujube, or Chinese date, whatever you want to call it. Unfortunately, my pears haven't been doing too good. They all dropped off. And I have, like I said, I've been lazy. I've been busy doing other stuff. I've got a Grumachama. So I've got a William Bartlett pear, because they're my favourite. But unfortunately, the only one that William Bartlett cross-pollinates with is a Nashi. And I'm not a massive fan of Nashi pears, but, you know, they're here. So I had to do it. That's another thing, if you're not that well into permaculture or gardening, there's some trees that need cross-pollination. So you have to plant 2 of the same type, like two pairs, but different species of pear. So next to those, I have a nectarine, which was also absolutely abundant. Unfortunately, it got damaged when it was young, so it's created this real weird kinky bit at the bottom. I guess it's okay. If it dies, I'll just, or if it gets so heavy, it, like, once it gets bigger and it falls over, I'll just, plant another one. Next to it, another blueberry, which isn't doing that well. I had an achacha, which is a tropical fruit, but the climate here is no good for that. And it died. And I've got my fig tree. I have a total of 29 fruit trees, I believe, and 25 square meters of vegetable garden. One of the natives that I've got, a Davidson's plum, haven't got a plum off it yet. It's flowered and it's fruited, but they get to a certain size and then they die. Here I have the drainage system that I was telling you about, water access structure. When I first moved into the house, there was really bad drainage. In big rains, it nearly flooded my house, because this drain out the front, right here in the driveway, literally just went straight into an ag line. So as you can see, this is fresh concrete, so I had to dig all that up. I spent the first 1.5 to 2 years doing retaining walls and changing the drainage, because it just wasn't good. So the downpipe off this side of a house over here went into a drain, which drained into that, which went into an ag line. But then my neighbour's house is illegally plumbed from that downpipe into their driveway and then into my driveway. So their one should be down their own property line. So it came into mine. So I had 2 houses feeding into one ag line, which is just a seepage pipe in the ground, so it just soaks into the ground. So I had to find the downpipe for here. I can't remember where it was. So there was a downpipe here. From that pipe it went across and down. I've since filled it in, so I had to dig that up, find where it was plumbed in, and then cut the ag line, and then create a drain from there, teeing it off to there, and then delete that section of pipe, which was a lot of work. But now my whole yard doesn't flood every time there's just a shower. So because there was a pipe underneath the driveway, I also didn't want anything driving over it, and if there was like any subsidence, I didn't want it to collapse. So I basically deleted it there, created that straight into the downpipe, and so this goes that way, and now that goes that way. So yeah, that catches all the runoff from the driveway and clears it off really well. But what I've got here is just a French drain. It's about 1 meter deep. This was a lot of work. This was hours, weeks of digging by hand, because you can't get a machine in here. I wanted to create like an open drive riverbed look, which is sort of what I've created. This is where I put the chickens to have a play in the front yard occasionally. There's a lot of grass and a lot of leaves. So yeah, I wanted to create an open dry riverbed look into the seepage pit. So all the water runoff from the front yard through the swales, it gets slowed down through each swale and soaked into the ground. But anything that does make it through goes into this sump pump. I'll open it up to show you. So I've got a sump pump in there, and in conditions like this where it hasn't rained for a while, what I'll do is I'll take this blue pipe and I'll drag it up to the top of a hill, and I'll just let it soak into the ground. So if this sump fills up with water enough that the pump turns on, it'll pump it to the top, and then it'll allow it to slowly soak through. So I'm not wasting a single drop of water by sending it out through. So only when it's going to be like rainy conditions again, I'll put it back into the downpipe, because it needs to pump. There's a lot of runoff from this small, even though it's a small hill, there's a lot of runoff of water that makes its way down when it's raining. So I need to move that liquid away and off site. And that goes down the left-hand side of the house near the meter board. Another thing to do with yields is, it's a big no-no, but I've planted peppermint, like straight into the ground. But what I like is that I can just come up and, like, if I'm working in the garden, I'm just stomping around, and it'll like crush the mint up, and then it'll send in an aroma of mint into the air. So I'll have an aroma of mint. So while I'm gardening, I get a nice fragrance of mint, which is amazing. Like it's so good to work around when you're doing that. And same as the lemongrass over here on the other side. I do the same with the lemongrass. I'll just walk up and smush some up as I'm working and give it a sniff, and it smells like Fruit Loops, because I think it smells like Fruit Loops. I like the smell of it. So on this side of the house, this dirt patch originally went and met up with the level of the grass here, so it was quite a sharp slope, and I didn't want as sharp of a slope. I wanted to build the land up, create a less slopey area to stop any runoff erosion. So the steeper slope created faster water flow, which created a lot more erosion. So I built it up, and then I filled it with dirt and planted some trees in here. So what I've got is the blueberry over behind the lemongrass here. I'm thinking of eventually in the future removing the lemongrass and planting, maybe keeping a few, but putting some kangaroo grass in, just because you can harvest it, and even experiment with some other Australian natives. I'm trying to learn a little bit more about Australian natives, native gardening. I've got a mango, I can't remember what type, Kensington, probably just one of your standard ones. Beautiful flavour. I got heaps off it last year, none this year unfortunately, but this is another thing to do with yields. I want this to get so big and so tall, and I'm pruning it in a specific shape that it's fanning out in a open wine glass shape. So this shape, so let's say in 20 years time this will be a thick trunk and you can climb it. So I want to be able to climb this in 20 years time. Well, I want whoever's living here to enjoy that, be able to climb it. And I've talked to the neighbours and they're pretty happy with me growing it over their fence line. As long as it's tall, they don't care about it growing over, because I said I'll give you mangoes if you let me grow it. So that's the deal. Next to it, I've got a monstrous macadamia, which has got too big, but I think I'll just let it go. I'm just going to let it keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger till it's as big as a tree out in the backyard. Behind that, I've got a almond, which last year produced heaps of almonds. Once you shelve them, you don't get much kilograms of nut, but you know, whatever. And here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Leptospermum polygalliflorium, which is a lemon tea tree, and over the back I've got a Leptospermum scoporium, which is a manuka, I believe. So manuka honey, and this is pretty much what they call manuka as well. This I got from a cutting from Girakkal National Park. I took about that much of a cutting. Technically it's illegal, but I don't care because I grew 7 trees out of it. So I've got 5 here, and I've got, oh no, wait, how many have we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sorry, I grew 8 trees out of one cutting. So in terms of sustainability, like, that's pretty good. Like, one cutting, so what? Like, its impacts are minimal. And they're absolutely huge, and they flower and they smell like sherbet, like lemon sherbet. It was like such a beautiful scent. Another thing to do with yields, a spiritual yield, an emotional yield, is when I'm walking down a driveway. This is what I was thinking when I walking down my driveway, because when I went to Girakkal for the very first time, I actually accidentally went at the exact same time of the month that these trees were flowering. So they're from the car park down to the waterfall at Girakkal. They line the entire footpath, and they only flower for about 2 weeks of the year. And I just happened to go at that exact same time. That's what inspired sparked my inspiration for this. I wanted to simulate the same thing when I'm coming home. So I want to come down my driveway and I want to see beautiful lemon scented tea trees lining my driveway, and smell the flowers and see the flowers and see the bees and everything on that. Yeah, so that was my inspiration for that part of it. Over here I've just got a cover crop of blackberry and some strawberries just floating about. I haven't picked many because the snails keep getting to them, but you know, oh, I'm sure it'll be fine. I can give them to the chickens. The one reason I did buy this house was this one single rose bush over here, or rose plant, whatever you want to call it, tree. I don't know how old it is, but it was just this old in 2017, so I can only estimate it's at least 20 years old. Yeah. So it produces the most fragrant red roses, which is absolutely amazing. So another thing to do with yield, I get to pick these and I give them to people at work, and I give them to just random people. I would like bring one through a drive-through at Macca's and hand it to the person in the door, type of thing. Just little things that make people's day better. Just brighten up their day, you know, like I bought one for The Apprentice for Valentine's Day 2 years in a row. Like, you know, it's just little things like that. I was just like, happy Valentine's Day. You know, we're not dating, but it's like, it's a nice gesture to do. And, you know, putting effort into growing something and then giving it to someone and like seeing their reaction of like, whoa, this smells amazing. Like, you grew this yourself, and like being proud of it, and then being proud of giving something that's so nice, something that's genuinely quality, high quality to someone else, and seeing them appreciate it. It's pretty nice. So I'm sort of creating like a tropical rainforest theme, seeing as a Davidson's plum is from like tropical Queensland. I've planted some rainforest plants, whatever that thing is, and some fern. I just got it from Bunnings, so I don't know. This little fig tree down here, apparently it's a very rare species. I got it from a client through work down at Mooney Mooney. They said, here, have this, because I was talking to them about my gardening. So, you know, giving and sharing and stuff like that. So I don't know if anyone knows what it is, but I've put it in the ground and it seems to be booming. Underneath my bottle brush, I have a jade bush and some kangaroo paw, which were originally here. That's massive for jade bush. But I've now planted a Wollemi pine. So that should grow up and grow between that, and then I'll trim the bottle brush down a little bit just to give it some clearance. Because in the future, I'll talk about my other Wollemis out the back, and the things that I plan on doing, and plan on creating a little nursery of rare, endangered / Australian / non-Australian conifers and trees and stuff. I want to buy land in the near future, like hundreds and hundreds of acres, and basically turn that land into a camping site, a permaculture paradise, like maybe even a permaculture research facility. I want to regenerate the land and replant the land with Wollemi pines, create what you would see as a botanic gardens, or like just somewhere people can come and enjoy, and, you know, also make a little bit of money off it as well, like open the site up for campers and stuff, and have such a nice facility that people want to come and enjoy it, and, you know, charge them $5 entry or whatever it is. So just enough for a maintenance upkeep, so I don't have to work. That will fund me and fund my future endeavors. So out the back, I'm creating a nursery where I can grow Wollemis, so by the time I can afford this land, they will be just the right size that I can transport them to the land and put them in the ground for good, and create that, you know, next generation of Falcon Farm permaculture paradise. That's pretty much it for the front yard. Talked about yields of all different sorts, for footpaths, stuff like that. This fern here, and out the front of this window here, the azalea, that's all original. I'm just leaving it. I could rip it out and put other stuff in, but it's doing its job. It's doing what it needs to do. Yeah, I don't see the purpose of changing this section. I've got more than enough fruit and vegetables in these other sections that I can have areas that are considered like zone 4 in permaculture, like zone 1 to 4. I can talk a little bit more about that. I didn't know about that when I first started designing this garden, but that's one of the things that I learned in Jeff Lawton's permaculture online course in 2020, the zones. So I did my final exam on this house. They recommended that you do it on a property, like a couple of acres or whatever. But my theory was that why should I do it on that when 99% of Australia lives in, well, 99% of like even the world lives in suburban blocks no bigger than 500 square meters. So if I was to create a business, it would be a suburban permaculture business where you teach people how to do this in a small setting. And yeah, so I did my design on a small scale, and even though the zones are only like within eyesight, like my zone 1 is down the driveway and left and right. My zone 1 might not even be past these lemongrass because I might not be able to see over there, stuff like that. But that's definitely like a zone 3-ish, because I'm only over there once a week, maybe even once a month. Especially now that I've been doing other stuff, it's like once 6 months, so you could probably consider it a zone 5 at this point. So yeah, I've designed it with zones as well. Yeah, I put a lot of thought into it, pretty much. So yeah, if you want to ask questions a little bit more about that, or pick my brain about something that I've missed, don't hesitate. I'll whip the book out. I'll whip out Bill Mollison's Bible, which is like this thick, and go through it, and we can talk about whatever we want. So now let's go into the backyard, and yeah, I think that's it. We can talk a little bit more about the backyard. So you come down here, and then you go over here into my driveway. So as you're getting close, into my front door, as you're getting closer, you're getting it. You can see the light changes as well. That's like another thing. So this is a very shaded area. It's like it's a more of a rainforest feel. And permaculture doesn't stop at my garden. I'm not going to show you inside my house, but I've done permaculture inside my house. From the window of my spare room, which is also a computer room, I've got I don't know if you can see that. That's a terrarium. So I've got a bottle. It's like a 9-litre bottle that's used for brewing cider. And I've put dirt and stuff in it and created a terrarium, and it's sealed with a cork, and I haven't opened it in about 4 years. So, and it's booming. Like, it is super duper like lush and green. It's like completely sustainable ecosystem inside that terrarium. And what's next to it is a rocking chair. So when I'm on my computer, I can take breaks, and I can open the blinds up and sit on my rocking chair, look at my terrarium, look out my window at my Wollemi pine, and out my window at this abundant garden, which is, you get a view of pretty much that sitting at the desk. So that's pretty cool, looking through at these ferns. And once these ferns get bigger as well, it'll look even more like a rainforest. So some more mint. So that's just, no, it doesn't smell. Yeah, the other one was peppermint that I showed you earlier. I think this is just normal mint. Yeah, so that's another thing about yields and permaculture, and just extending it as far as you can. Another thing they talk about in Jeff Lawton's course is when you're designing something, you need to think about... There was a few ways you could do it, and they gave you an item and then another item, and then between it you use words like over, around, through, under, like off, like stuff like that. So you can do like, garden on pond, or in this case, grapevine over water tank. Or grapevine over concrete. So trying to shade because the sun rises from this way and the northern aspect is there. Trying to shade the concrete as much as possible to create the heat, keep the heat as low as possible, create this space out here, which is a gazebo area, as comfortable so I can come out here and sit with the chickens and do whatever I want out here, pretty much. So this is my 5,000 litre tank. Out front there was a 1,000 litre tank. Originally I had passion fruit growing up and across, over here. But since then, it lasted 2 or 3 years and died off. I've got the rootstock growing as a weed, which is a bit silly. This rose here is a cutting from the one out the front, so I'm trying to propagate as much as I can and grow some more. But right now, I've got my pink Iona grape, which goes along the edge of the gutter and then down into this garden bed which I installed. And then over here I've got a muscadine grape, which is a little bit bushy, so that's an early season, and then this is a late season, and then this one goes down this side of the house. So you have to duck a little bit every time you go through. Let me just try one. Oh, this is another thing I like about permaculture, is like, you just come out to the garden and just start eating. Like, don't go to the fridge, just come outside. And if you don't want it, you can give it to the chickens, and then the chickens eat it. So yeah, this one, it's a little bit bushier, so it's a little bit better at shading, and basically I'm trying to grow it as far as I can that way. I don't know how far it'll go, but yeah. And from the other side, I'm thinking of maybe one day growing another one this direction. Still undecided yet. Oh wait, I didn't talk about my native bees out the front. Quickly, in one quick moment. So the native beehive out the back is the original, and this one out the front is the one that I split off that hive after about 2 years. So here it is, nice and shaded. It does get morning sun in summer, but it is shaded throughout the entire day for the rest of the day, in a nice open spot for them to fly into. Smells delicious. Another thing I love doing is just walking around the garden and just getting a scent, whichever direction the wind's blowing, just get a scent of a beehive. It is just the sweetest, most delicious scent ever. And when you smell it and you're gardening, you're just like, oh, this is heaven. It's so cool. So yeah, the one out. Oh, one more thing. These Leptospermum polygalliflorum, that's what the bees feast on. So the honey is just simply amazing. It is better than Manuka. Yeah, trust me, it's so good. And recently I've put a honey section. So I've got the bottom section of a hive, top section of a hive, and now I've got a honey section. So I can start collecting honey. Not too much, only maybe 50 mil a year max. I don't want to take too much, but yeah, I can collect honey if I want to. And because of that, I planted recently, so this is a Christmas bush. I'm not sure the actual scientific name, but that's original. I was going to cut it down when I first moved in, but my mum told me what it was, and she said it's a native, so I left it. She said, no, don't cut it down, leave it alone. So because that, I've planted a wattle, and over here, recently I bought some honey from Beechworth in Victoria, and it was Tasmanian leatherwood flavour, which is, I don't know if you've had it, the best. It's got such a floral scent to it and a floral taste. It is so refreshing. So yeah, I bought a Tasmanian leatherwood so my bees over here have something to eat. And this retaining wall I built, there's a garden shed at the back on my neighbour's property that I wanted to retain. There was a retaining wall here, but not as nice. It dips in for the water tank, 5,000 litre water tank. And my chickens, I let free range. I let them free range in the backyard because I fence out, not fence in. Originally, I did have a door, but they jumped over on the first day, so I had to clip their wings so they wouldn't do that, but they still did somehow. I don't know. So I just left it open and said, go, run free, whatever. What do you want, Nubby? Over here I have a finger lime, some more fruit trees. I got 2.7 kilos of the stuff inside. So if you squeeze this and get all the just stuff out of the inside, and discard the skin, I got 2.7 kilos of that off this one tree, which is maybe 3.5 meters tall now, 4 meters. So it's nearly at full size, and it's only like 5 years old. But yeah, it went wild this year. It went so good. So I got a good yield of physical fruit out of that. Not so much on the apples or the figs, excuse me, this year. But yeah, bang on this. And I made finger lime vodka out of it, which was so good. And I also make finger lime cordial, which is like the most refreshing. It's so refreshing, and it's got like such a distinct flavor. It's got like a bitterness, like a homemade lemonade. But it's just like, it's hard to describe. If you come over and visit my garden, I will make some finger lime cordial for everyone to taste. So yeah, come over and check it out, because I've got so much I can give it away. I'll make just little sample bits just so you can taste it. I'm not going to give it all away, but just enough so you can sample it and appreciate the flavor. So moving on, another thing to do with foresight and design. This wall is specifically designed to be the perfect height to sit down on. So all my mates, I can just get over and we can have a barbecue under the gazebo area, and we can just sit out on the lawn, or like put a rug out or something and just sit on this wall and eat our food on our lap. Tease the chickens over here, and just, it's designed to be used. This wall's designed to be used. The step up's designed to be the same level as the garden, and then the neighbours sort of slopes. The property does slope ever so slightly down that way, continuing on from the front lawn sloping this way. It does slope down that way, so that's why I dropped it down and it went across. Over here is my seed raising area next to my shed. Originally I was just going to have the chickens running in here, and up to the back of the shed there's a little bit of a run down the back, but 4 chickens, they say on like the Lilydale chicken egg packets that it's like 100 chickens per hectare or something, or 1,000 chickens per hectare, which turns out to be like 1 chicken per couple of square meters, which is, to be honest, quite disgusting. These things roam my entire backyard and they are still not satisfied with enough scratch area. They're always whinging at me saying, give me more space, I want to go out the front. Or like, I even took them on a little trip to the eco village one day. I put them in my van and took them on a field trip. So that video's up on Falcon Farming as well if you want to see that. They're not free range chickens, they're world travelers. They've traveled far and wide. So yeah, they lived a good life. That's just some pumpkin that I'm cleaning up. I got my compost next to my other beehive. This one smells even better. Yeah, this honey. The one out the front's not so good, but this one is just like to die for. Unfortunately, I won't have any of that available. I will have eaten it before everyone gets here on May 4th. Vegetables, but I'll get over here first. So seed raising area, and you walk through here, and I've got some more pineapples. I got my little chicken house with my little, got 5 eggs, nice. Yeah, so I've got a passion fruit here that hasn't done anything really. It's just sat there not doing anything. Not sure why, but the idea, because it's a passion fruit over the other garden, has died off a couple of years ago. I wanted to grow this up and across and shade the chickens coop basically, because that gets pretty hot in summer, and I don't like them laying in the heat. Like, even though it's shaded and it's like insulated, yeah, I don't like them laying in the heat. It must not be fun for them. As you can see, they've turned their food inside out, which happens a lot. Naughty, aren't you? seed raising area, enough for 300. 480. Yeah, enough for 320 seedlings. And if I want more, I can plant more like in other places. I got these cages because rats come here because of a chicken poo and food and stuff, because they keep doing this. But yeah, this is going to be in the ground, in the garden bed. So you should see some vegetables when you come over. I'm running out of phone battery, so hopefully this doesn't take too much longer. Yeah, enough for 320 spaces, which is like, you know, heaps. Shade cloth and, you know, I've got my own mulcher, so I climb. I've got a working at heights qualification, so I'm technically not legally allowed to trim the tree because you have to have an arborist license and stuff, but I do it anyway, whatever. I climb the tree myself and I trim the tree myself, and then I mulch the mulch, and then I put it back under the tree or out the front under the fruit trees, mostly under the tree because woody trees require woody mulch. The chickens want food. In a sec, Nubby, in a sec. Yeah, so I've got that. I've got a transfer pump, so if my 5,000 ever gets low, I can transfer from the other side of the house, which is my 2,000 and two 500s. So I've got 3,000 on the other side. I can put it into this one, which has the 240 volt pump. And then I run a lead out to here, and I plug into here, and I can turn valves, depending on which configuration I want, to turn on the irrigation for each garden bed. So it is pretty sophisticated. I've run underground piping the whole way across. Dragon fruit here, and over there I've got an espaliered black sapote with 2 dragon fruit either side, and some sweet potato growing up. Like I said, I've been busy, haven't done much in the garden, but I intend to do it this weekend, so I've got 2 months to prepare for when everyone comes over. However, this pumpkin has gone wild, so you know, I've got a few of them off it. But like I said, I fence the chickens out of the garden, so I've put chicken mesh up, and then I had to put this shade cloth up because they kept poking their heads through and trimming the bushes. So there was like a 300mm section around the inside where they'd trimmed it with their little beaks poking through the hole. So this tree currently shading, the neighbour's one is shading, but this shades all down here. So every gutter, except for this sunroom attachment, has a water tank off it. Over here I've got my outdoor bath. Another thing with permaculture is just enjoying it outdoors. So in summer or winter I can do a cold bath or I can do a warm bath. I take the cover off and I run my fire pit with a coil and do a warm bath in winter, or in summer I do a cool bath and do an ice bath. And I basically look up and look through these bushes and at night and enjoy the stars and just do some stargazing. Around here I have a asparagus container. Originally, that's for laundry here. Originally I had a 3-tier bath system with like a reed bed and then like a recycling pond and stuff, just to filter the grey water. But in principle it works, but in a situation in suburbia it's not so practical. It's very easy to just dump the water down the drain. I still use eco-friendly disinfectant, detergent, sorry. So, you know, it's not as damaging to the environment, and I do washing very rarely. I try and conserve my clothes, reuse my clothes as much as possible to the point where I'm not sweating and stinking. So yeah, I try and do it as much as possible. Over here next to the asparagus, some spare pots, some leftover timber from a friend's shed, but all the big branches that I can't mulch up, I either do hugelkultur, where I plant it under the tree. So what I've done here, the first few years of doing it, you can see just here I've planted them under, and I put some chicken wire because the chickens kept scratching it. So that soil was probably another 300 mil lower. So I've built the soil up with the branches that I trimmed from the tree, and then the mulch that I mulched up from the tree leaves I put over the top of it, and that has broken down. So similar to the front yard where the tree roots are interconnected, and you know, I'm getting suckers from all different plants coming up in all different spots. This tree is creating a better, stronger root ball at the bottom here. So yeah, they say plants share nutrients, which is what they're doing out the front. They're sharing all nutrients in the first 200 mil of topsoil that I've created. So finally, we are down the other side of the house where I've got my 2 water tanks. I've plumbed them both up to be as accessible as possible in the corner, and I've put this up so my chickens don't ruin my Wollemi pines. This is a little bit janky. It hasn't fully been set up yet. I'm going to put some stakes in and like create a nice little arch. But yeah, I'm creating a rainforest situation under here for my Wollemis that I bought from a guy down in Tasmania that grows them from seed. So I've got 24 of them at the moment, and I plan on getting about 50 before I finish. I also have other plants like Japanese cedar, Australian red cedar. I've got black cypress pine, which is an Australian. I'm going to get some forest, forest casuarina. Yeah, I'm going to get a lot of trees. Some non-natives, like giant redwoods and stuff, only because they're just beautiful trees. Like, why wouldn't you? Like, in 50 years' time, when I'm, like, on my deathbed and handing my property over to the next generation, I want their kids to be able to build a treehouse in that giant redwood and, you know, climb that giant redwood and put swings on that giant redwood. And yeah, I want them to enjoy that tree and do what I do. Go up to the tree and pick a branch and smell it and appreciate how tall and beautiful and giant and old. There was a tree in the Geelong Botanic Gardens planted in 1870 something. It was like a 150-year-old giant redwood. It's hard to believe. Like, years and years go by, and yeah, it's enjoyed by many generations to come. And finally, I have my kiwi fruit. So this is my bedroom window here, and what I want to do is similar to the spare room, my computer room. I want to look outside and enjoy a forest and fruit forest. I look out my bedroom window every morning and see my Wollemi pines. And, you know, make sure they're not dead. I go, oh crap, I need to water them. I better do that this afternoon. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for the full comprehensive tour of my garden. I've probably missed some minor details. Can't quite put my finger on it at the moment. I'm sure I'll think of it later, but I got 8% on my phone, so I better hurry up, sign off, edit this and upload it so you can all enjoy it. And I hope to see you here on the day for Central Coast Edible Garden Trail, and check out my other videos on this channel because there's some good ones. There's some fun ones of taking the chickens to the eco village, and there's another video of a garden tour of this garden that I did when I first planted the trees out the front, so you can see the comparison of that video compared to what I've got now and see just how wild it's got over the years. So hope you enjoyed that, and thanks for watching. I will see you next time.